What's happening, y'all? Welcome inside the Fantasy Stock Exchange. Danny and Butch coming at you with episode 17 of Dynasty Decisions. You guys know the drill with this series. You send us your questions, your teams, your rookie pick questions, your trade questions, anything and everything involving Dynasty Fantasy Football. We will answer it on here. It's not a paid thing. You don't need to pay for this. So if you guys want your questions answered, you can reach out to us on Twitter, which are on the screen right now, or on Discord, which is in the link in the description. You can DM us directly on there. So like, comment, subscribe if you guys enjoy this. Danny, how you doing today?
Doing well. And yeah, ready to dive into some of your teams, help you guys position yourself to either win your championship this year or position for that 2022-2023 contender, as I'll always say. Before we get into the first team, though, can I hit the intro? Okay, so let's start off with the first team. And Bush, take it away with Ian Steele's team in a 10-team half PPR, one quarterback league. Go.
Right. So Ian Steele has like probably like 90 trades for us. So we're going to try and go through his trades as quickly as we possibly can, because I don't want to spend 45 minutes on his team. But like Danny said, 10-team half PPR, one quarterback. You guys can see his team on the screen: Aaron Rodgers, Justin Herbert, and Trey Lance. It's a one quarterback league, so it's not as valuable there. Saquon Barkley, Dalvin Cook, Jonathan Taylor is his top three running backs. That'll freaking do. DeAndre Hopkins, DK Metcalf, Deontay Johnson, DJ Chark, T. Higgins, Robert Woods. Very deep wide receiver core. Darren Waller is his tight end. Adam Troutman also, and Robert Tonyan. He's got some defenses as well, but we're not going to worry about those. He has a 2022 first that is not his, so presumably an earlier first than what his team would produce. And then no real mid-round picks in 2022, and then all of his picks in the coming years, except for his mid-round picks in 2023. So we're going to go through these trades basically one by one, rapid fire, give our thoughts on each one. So anything in red that you guys can see on the screen is what he gave up, and what is in green is what he actually received in return. So he traded away Damian Harris, James White, James Washington, N'Keal Harry. So a bunch of noise and Damian Harris. Damian Harris is like a solid piece, but nothing really exciting. And what he got in return is mind-boggling to me. He got the 104, which I would take straight up over
easily
combined easily.
Yeah, dude,
he got a 2021. So he got another pick this year, the 201 and the 204. So somehow he got two early seconds and the 104 for a bunch of noise and Damian Harris. And I mean, if I had to guess who he picked with those picks, I'm looking at his team right now. I can't tell who he picked with the 104. It looks like he traded it away in a future deal. So he didn't actually spend that pick, but nonetheless, that you won that trade easily. I don't even think we really need to give much analysis on that. I would take the 104 over all those pieces combined easily. So great job on that trade. To the next one that we have here, you got Kareem. Go ahead.
I just want to say one thing. I would probably take the 201 over the package. I mean, if we're talking about 201s, what, Elijah Moore? Yeah,
probably would as well. Yeah.
Unreal. Great deal.
Both of those seconds. I would easily take both of those seconds.
Easily.
Yeah. So great job on that trade. And then it looks like he dealt away Kareem Hunt, Mike Davis, and Denzel Mims for Chase Edmonds, Deontay Johnson, and the 207. So to me, the best asset in this deal is Deontay Johnson. Kareem Hunt, probably a close second in that regard. How do you break this one down? Because this one's a little challenging to me. To me, Chase Edmonds and Mike Davis kind of cancel each other out to some degree, because they're both, short-term running backs that are going to have relatively big roles this year. But Mike Davis probably a bigger role, but Chase Edmonds is 4 or 5 years younger, so he's going to have more longevity from that perspective.
Yeah, so if you want to cancel that out and just talk about the fact that he got a freaking 207 for Denzel Mims. Look, I understand we don't want to give up on young, talented, former second-round picks, but you basically just cashed in the quote-unquote bust of a pick in Mims last year for a pick this year where Mims was going last year. So basically, you just get a do-over on what proved to be a face plant of a rookie year last year. Yes, I like Denzel Mims, the prospect. He face planted as a rookie. Guess what? At 207, if you're turning that into Terrace Marshall, De'Ami Brown, someone in that type of regard.
Even Nico Collins, I would take over Denzel Mims.
Like, dude, straight up. So, we clearly both agree that package for you is just Yeah, mind-bogglingly.
And then Deontay Johnson for Kareem Hunt's probably about a fair swap, depending on if you needed a running back or if you needed a wide receiver. So I think overall you probably won that trade. You could slice it a number of ways, but I would take your side, given the youth and the longevity aspect of the trade that you got there, and especially considering Mims is by far the worst piece in either side of the trade.
And then the next deal is just flat out robbery. I mean, this is a package that probably needs an extra first or 2 firsts on top of it to be even considered. The fact that you're able to pull Saquon Barkley for DJ Moore, Michael Pittman, and no first-round picks attached. Like, what?
Yeah, I'm not even going to analyze that. You killed that trade. That one's not even close. The next trade we got here, 2021 207 and the 306. So some mid-round picks for DJ Chark. I take Chark in that deal. I think overall, Chark's value is probably about an early second in terms of a rookie draft. And I think 207, 306, that's not quite enough for me to get up to the 201, 202. So I would definitely take the DJ Chark side there.
I'd personally be a little bit lower on Chark than the 201, 202 simply because I viewed the 201, 202 as being like...
It is a one-quarterback league.
Oh, it's a one-quarterback league. Okay, then you absolutely smashed the package. Yeah, no concerns. Oh, so the Saquon Barkley package is in a one-quarterback league. Go figure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you would absolutely even replace that second and third with 2 future first-round picks, and maybe it's fair value. So, yeah,
exactly. Because the 201 in a one-quarterback league is more like... Terrace Marshall, Rondale Moore, whereas the 201 in a Superflex league could be Mac Jones. It could be, Rashad Bateman. It could even be Jalen Waddle or Devontae Smith if people are lower on him or them. So, yeah, definitely great deals all around there. Then he got, this one's just highway robbery. Dalton Keene, a 2022 second and the 410 for the 208, which eventually ended up being Trey Lance. I get that it's a one-quarterback league, but there is no possible way I would take anything other than Trey Lance on that side of the deal.
Bro, you don't want Dalton Keene?
No, that's not close. We don't have to analyze that one very long. Then we got David Montgomery, the 104. So the 104 that he acquired, he eventually traded away. He traded away David Montgomery and the 104 and a 2022 first for Jonathan Taylor and a 205, which eventually became Amon-Ra St. Brown. So this one is a lot more close of a deal, right? It seems like you kind of been running roughshod for the last couple deals. This one's a lot closer, and I personally would actually lean the side of the package. I think David Montgomery, the 104 and a 2022 first, all 3 of those assets have first round value, in my opinion, probably late first for David Montgomery, but still. So that 104 is likely a Travis Etienne. Yeah, it's likely Travis Etienne, Javonte Williams, or Devontae Smith. Maybe one of the top 3 guys falls, but overall, as much as I love Jonathan Taylor, I think Travis Etienne, David Montgomery, plus a 2022 first is enough for me to give up Jonathan Taylor in a kind of trade like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty fair. Again, with the roster that he has, I don't mind making that splash. I mean, fucking Jonathan Taylor's is RB3.
That's crazy.
What is, with your current roster, man, go for it. With fucking Rodgers, Herbert, Lance at quarterback, running backs the way you have it, wide receiver. How did you end up with this team?
We were establishing how we ended up getting this team by winning every trade that he was in. Okay, so the next trade we got 201 or the 204 in the 2021 draft and a 5th round pick, so a throwaway for Marlon Mack, the 207 and the 207. So basically traded down from the 204 essentially to get Kadarius Toney at the 207 and get Marlon Mack on top of it. So not a great trade in the world, but if you're going to move down, maybe you were even considering Kadarius Toney at 204. I think in a 1-quarterback format, Kadarius Toney at the 204 is probably about fair value. So I actually don't mind that trade at all. And I think the 207 in a 1-quarterback league for Kadarius Toney is pretty decent value from the rookie draft perspective.
Yeah, not to mention, I mean, you do have Jonathan Taylor. Maybe anything happens. Hey, Marlon Mack basically for our 5th round picks, fair value.
You secure your handcuff, quote unquote. I'm not sure if he's necessarily a handcuff, but he would have value if anything happened to Taylor. So
yeah, I don't mind taking the shot. And then exactly. The next deal, you could take it away, but I love your side for it. What the frick?
Yeah, so two very late picks, 2 4th rounders, and Darrell Henderson for Trey Sermon at the 201. Yeah, give me Trey Sermon there. I think we already know what Darrell Henderson's going to be. He's going to be a committee running back at best in the NFL. So yeah, might be a high-end handcuff, but give me Trey Sermon, who actually has a legitimate chance to be a starting running back in the NFL. So we're getting a little long on his team, so we're going to rip through these last couple trades here. We got Tua, Swift, and a 2023 fourth for Herbert, Gallup, and a first and a third. So again, remember, this is a one quarterback league. So Herbert doesn't have quite as much value as he would in a super flex league. The way I kind of break this one down is I would say Swift, Tua, and Herbert in the first are the real like pieces in this deal. And I think I would take the Swift side just because it's a one quarterback league. I think Swift is the most valuable asset in the deal, followed by probably the 2022 first, then by Herbert, then by Tua, and then by Gallup, or maybe you throw Gallup somewhere in the middle there.
Gallup over Tua.
Yeah, maybe, but it's still a young quarterback. Like I'm not as high on Gallup as you are. I think I would take the Swift side just because of the young running back factor. I think he's the best asset in the deal.
Yeah, like I do agree with the Swift side here, but again, given the functionality of his team, like he didn't really have like
acquiring a pick when you're not really gonna you're not even gonna really need Swift. So acquiring a pick in the future, it's not the worst thing in the world. So quickly, these last couple deals we can rip through. That Deebo Samuel one isn't close. Like you got Deebo Samuel for a bunch of mid-round picks. I'm not even going to go over that. That's a great deal for you. As I'm not even really high on Deebo Samuel, and I like that deal for you. And then you got a 2022 fourth for Jared Goff in a one quarterback league. I mean, sure, I guess if you don't need Jared Goff, trade him away. And then you got something for Thaddeus Moss, so that's a steal for you.
Yeah, no, definitely. And his questions, I mean, the first bunch of them, he's basically saying what moves I should make. You don't got to make moves, okay? Yeah. Your freaking nucleus, like your starters alone, let's just say hypothetically, like, does he say how many flexes he has? Let's say it's a one quarterback, two running back, two wide receiver, tight end, and let's say one or two flexes. If it's a one quarterback league, Justin Herbert, Saquon Barkley, Dalvin Cook, DeAndre Hopkins, DK Metcalf, Darren Waller, and your flexes are freaking Jonathan Taylor and Deontay Johnson. You're winning your championship. So
yeah. So I would sit pat. I wouldn't do anything. He does ask the typical question: do I cash in on some of my younger assets or my older assets? I probably wouldn't do that. To be honest, I would just ride these guys for a while. You have a lot of young depth that's going to establish itself and eventually work its way up into your starting lineup. If you're looking to move off of Hopkins and Waller because you have some younger replacements, then you do it at that point. But as of right now, you're ready to compete. You're ready to go. And I think that's probably enough time spent on his team. He does ask if he should look to improve his running back situation with J.K. Dobbins or ETN. If you can get them for good value, which I trust your trading ability by now. So you definitely could go after some guys like that. So let's get on to the TheRealJakeD's team, because that was a long question. For future reference, probably keep your questions a little shorter than that because it's hard for us to get to everybody's teams then. But nonetheless, that was a fun conversation. A lot of trades and a lot of players involved. So.
For sure. So let's take it away with the TheRealJakeD's team. This is a PPR super flex league. So keep that in mind. He just actually got back to me now. Quarterbacks, Brady, Cousins, Lance as the main three, with Mond as a good, valuable real piece because he does have Cousins. Like at least you're guaranteed the Vikings starter there for the foreseeable future. So I like that. Running backs, Taylor, Akers, Gibson, Carter in particular. Wide receivers, Amari, or both Coopers. You got Amari Cooper and then Cooper Kupp. I'm assuming that's T. Higgins, etc. Tight end, you got Kittle, Jonnu, and then he's basically got all he doesn't have all of his picks. He has all of his picks in 2023 and 2024, but he doesn't have his second or third this year. His question: if y'all could give any advice on this team for the next one, that would be sick. It's my biggest buy-in for a Dynasty league ever, so I'm a bit nervous. What are your initial thoughts when looking at this roster? How can he improve it?
Looking at his roster overall, it looks like he's got, he's set and ready to go, right? Especially with those running backs, man. Like you are in a phenomenal position going forward and for this year, because I think we both agree, like all three of those starting running backs that you have are young and they're all in my top 10 of redraft. So all those guys are going to be enough to carry your team. Plus you got, other pieces like Brady and Kittle and Cooper and Kupp. And like, it's just insane, the team that you've built. So I would say you shouldn't be nervous. You said you're a little bit nervous because this is your biggest money league. I wouldn't be nervous if I were you, because you have, a locked and loaded contender. All you got to hope for now is health, basically.
Yeah, no, exactly. The one thing I could say possibly is maybe capitalizing on the Troutman Firkser hype that people have been having this offseason and maybe try to get some more established depth at the wide receiver position. Aside from that, your RBs are absolutely loaded. Your quarterback should be very good this year. And you got George Kittle, a tight end who should absolutely carry that unit. So nothing else I have to really say. All right, so we should be done with Jake's team. Let's go on to the next one. That's going to be from PorkChief. So you guys should see that on the screen. It is a 10-team half PPR league that has 2 quarterbacks, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, and a flex. Reading off the roster real quick. Lamar Jackson, Tom Brady, and Trey Lance as his main 3 quarterbacks. Running back, Eckler, David Montgomery, Ronald Jones in particular. Wide receiver, Adams, Diggs, Julio in particular. Tight ends, TJ Hawkinson, and then he has all of his picks in the next 2 years. So his questions: do I upgrade at running back or do I stick with my squad? And if I do upgrade at running back, what is an appropriate price? Or who is an appropriate price to really go pay for? So what's your initial thought on this?
My initial thoughts is that I personally wouldn't do anything because so the reason you usually want to upgrade at running back is because they're the engine of your team. They're the team that, makes you win a fantasy championship, but you have enough difference making pieces on your team that your second running back in particular, because I think Austin Eckler will be a difference maker. Your second running back and your third running back don't necessarily need to be world beaters because you have world beater wide receivers. You have Devontae Adams and Stephon Diggs. You have Lamar Jackson, who's a world beater quarterback. You have TJ Hawkinson, who, spoiler alert, in our draft guide, I think can be a world beater type tight end this year, especially given the volume that he's about to see. And then Tom Brady and Trey Lance, again, also very good options. So overall, I think you're getting a little bit too you're getting a little too antsy to make a move just because you feel like you need to. But I honestly think your team is ready to compete right now with the current framework that you have. Even in a 10-team league, I still think your team is ready to compete.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Again, those quarterbacks are absolutely savage. I mean, if you're talking about it right now, Tom Brady can be a top 10 option for you this year. And again, although I think Trey Lance is a more obviously a future type of asset. Dude, as soon as this guy gets starting, I wouldn't be shocked if you're talking about a top 8 quarterback on points per game, in combination with the fact that you mentioned you wrote up TJ Hawkinson as a guy in the draft guide. I mean, your boy Lamar Jackson as well. So overall, the quarterback room is phenomenal. Wide receivers, you got very good, proven difference makers at the position. Hopefully, for your sake, Aaron Rodgers is donning the green and yellow with the Packers, because if that's the case, that wide receiver core is just going to be absolute filth. And then a running back, again, Eckler, David Montgomery, Ronald Jones should be steady week to week.
You have Carter too. Like you can definitely get by at running back. It's not a big concern of mine. I just think you have all your picks too. It's not like you're struggling for picks. If you saw an opportunity to make a move, let's say you could trade a David Montgomery and a first round pick for an Antonio Gibson or a Cam Akers or something, I'd be willing to entertain something like that. But again, I do think your team can compete as it is right now. And you can use your future picks to give yourself some flexibility in case you want to draft a running back next year, or you want to, trade that pick for a proven running back, whatever the case is.
Yep, absolutely. So overall, I think those are closing thoughts, unless you have anything else to add here.
Nope, pretty straightforward.
All right, we can go on to Essej's team, or I think it's just Jesse backwards, but nice. So this is a 12-team Superflex half PPR league. And if you're looking at the roster quarterbacks, you got Mahomes, Watson, Love, Mond in particular. Running back, Swift, ETN, Javonte Williams. Wide receivers, Corey Davis, Tyler Boyd, Nico Collins, etc. Tight end, Zach Ertz, Brevin Jordan. And then kicker, okay, whatever, Blankenship and McPherson. Though, I don't know, I never play with Dynasty leagues with kickers. But anyways, let's look at the picks. He's got 4 2022 first-round picks, 2 2022 seconds, and all of his late picks, and also has 3 2023 first. So while the roster right now clearly is not ready to compete this year, 7 future first-round picks is going to help with that.
Yeah, and not to mention the fact that you have some true cornerstone assets, especially at running back and quarterback. You have Mahomes and Watson, who, I mean, this time next year, Deshaun Watson should be back to being the first-round startup value that he will be if he's on the field. And then those 3 running backs, again, we both think probably, especially for all 3 of those running backs in particular, their best years are ahead of them, 2022 and beyond. Those 3 guys I have some hesitancy with in redraft, but from 2022, 2023, which is where your winning window is going to be once you can replenish your wide receiver core and your tight end core, you should be in a phenomenal spot. One suggestion I would make is try and acquire Kyle Pitts based on this team. He just seems like a perfect asset for the team that you're building, and you have the draft capital necessary to do it. And it might seem steep to give up, a first rounder and a second rounder and maybe one of your young receivers or something like that for a player that's never done anything in the NFL yet. But I promise you, his value isn't going down anytime soon. Even if he has a down season, you could sell him and get out. And the more likely scenario is that his value goes up a tremendous amount and you suddenly have the best tight end in Dynasty.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe Dude, as much as I love Tyler Boyd, the cost for Pitts would probably be something like Boyd and 2 firsts. And with the current makeup of your team, that's the type of deal I would look at. Because let's be honest here. Yes, your wide receivers are weak, but that trio at running back, those two young real quarterbacks.
It's also the best position to be in is be weak at wide receiver.
Absolutely. So overall, again, this is obviously clearly a 2023 team when you look at the assets that you have available to you. And in terms of your questions, he mentions I'll try to trade Davis, Boyd, Ertz, and Jimmy G. Those would really be the names I would look to deal. And you hit the nail on the head by saying those are the guys I'd look to sell. So good job there. The final question he has here, though, is should I try and pivot from my young running backs to young wide receivers? And my answer is hold on to those running backs because even in 2023, let's be honest here, they are not reaching their value ceiling anytime soon. Like we're talking about a 2022 or 22-year-old DeAndre Swift, 22-year-old Travis Etienne, 21-year-old.
They're all going to be on their rookie contract still by that point.
Yeah, so you're absolutely set at that position.
And if you wanted to pivot from one of them, let's say in the 2022 class, you land the 101 or something, you take Breece Hall or whoever the 101 is at running back, and Travis Etienne, let's say James Robinson gets traded or something like that, and there's like some big value spike for Travis Etienne, and you wanted to move him or move one of Swift or Williams or something like that, and create some more roster flexibility, maybe get a stud young receiver, some more draft picks or something of that nature, you could definitely do something like that and use your draft picks to replenish your running back core from the running backs you're trading for young receiver assets. So you have so much flexibility with this roster. I wouldn't force anything. I wouldn't try and compete too early. If in 2022, you could probably compete in 2022, but I would punt this to 2023 when your team is going to be absolutely stacked.
Amen. So any closing thoughts here? Or I to be honest here, when I'm looking at this Essej, you're in a very good position. So you got a good head on your shoulders here.
Yep. Yeah, you're doing great.
All right, we can move on to SpaceMunkey then. And as you guys can see on the screen, this is a half PPR, or sorry, it's a 10-team half PPR league. That's one quarterback. And his current notes in terms of the transition of the league, they're currently trying to change to a 3 wide receiver format. So keep that in mind when you're talking about the overall structure of this team. Quarterback, he's only got Mahomes on his roster. And let's be honest, when you have Patrick Mahomes, that's all you really need.
I don't really feel like giving this guy advice, much like the last video that we did last week. This guy's team is absurd.
I just took a look at it right now, and yeah, geez, you guys can see that on the screen. Barkley, Akers, Gibson, Mixon, Hill, Metcalf, Lamb, Chase, Higgins. Like, dude, that's fantastic. So basically his questions that he has for this team. He has thoughts on our trades, so you guys will see the trades on the right. We'll go through them. Felt like I had too much depth with current format and 10 team, and we wanted to move them into picks. So, yeah, it's a very good problem to have when your main problem is, I have too much depth. I got to move them for
having too much of anything is the worst in Dynasty.
Yeah, amen. So he ended up trading away this first deal. Oh man, I love this. He traded away.
The context he provides with each of these trades too is really important because he says in this deal, this was prior to Cam Akers actually breaking onto the scene. So he basically got Cam Akers for basement level value.
Yeah, and he gave up Derrick Henry and Alex Madison for Cam Akers, T. Higgins, and Kyle Pitts.
Yeah,
but I would take Akers over Henry straight up. And you got Higgins and Pitts from it.
And here's the really important thing to take away from a trade like this. This is what we mean when we say sell players in season for picks, because people don't care about picks in season. They care about winning, and they care about the actual fantasy production that they see on the field. And a guy at this point in time, when he made this trade, Cam Akers was not producing on the field. He was able to flip a superstar running back, right, last year in fantasy for a first rounder, a very exciting young running back who we both agree we would take in Dynasty right now straight up over Derrick Henry, and another exciting young receiver. So yeah, you made out like an absolute bandit in that trade.
Yep. And the next deal, he's got my guy. He's got the Lambster himself. He ended up giving up Josh Jacobs, Cooper Kupp, Noah Fant in a second for CeeDee Lamb in a first. So if we were talking about straight value, let's just say Fant and Jacobs is probably worth the first, maybe. Like, how would you rank that?
The way I looked at it immediately was Jacobs and Kupp to me is about equal to Lamb, and you probably don't agree. Maybe you want to throw the second involved in that as well.
At least, yeah.
Yeah, to me, I think Jacobs, Kupp, and the second is about equivalent value to Lamb. Now, I might still take Lamb in that side of the deal, but I think equivalency of value, it's pretty similar. overall, though, I think you won this. The best asset in this deal is clearly CeeDee Lamb, and I would argue that you could make a case that the second best asset in this deal is the 2023 first.
Yeah, I mean, like, you can make the argument that you got the two best assets in this deal. So overall, I would prefer your side right away. Next deal, he sent away Kenny Golladay and GusBuster for a 2023 first and second, and I love this.
This is what he was talking about, right? He said he had too much depth. Like, on his current roster, when was he going to start Kenny Golladay, right? Like, he had Tyreek, Metcalf, CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase. I guess he wouldn't have had Chase yet. All right, yes, he would. He had said it's post-draft. But either way, when are you going to start Kenny Golladay? You might as well get a first-round pick out of him.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you're talking about that appreciating asset. Look, as much as I love Kenny Golladay, we're still talking about a 27-year-old wide receiver. If that 2023 draft is anything like what we think it can be, talking about a DJ Ugalele, you're talking about any of those young running backs, Bijan Robinson, Tank Bigsby, one of those wide receivers, Kayshon Boutte, like, you got a loaded class that day one right now are probably worth more than Kenny Golladay. As much as I love Kenny Golladay, the talent, any of those guys at 21, 22 years old coming to the NFL with high draft capital are going to be worth more than Kenny Golladay. So the fact that you're able to pull that off right now when you don't even need Kenny Golladay on your team is just absolutely fantastic. The next trade, this one is a little bit more iffy than me, simply because he's projecting the 2023 first 2 years from now to be top three. As bad as teams are, I just personally can't do that unless they're like starting freaking Kyle Trask at quarterback.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's really hard to hamstring yourself in trades when you just assume picks are going to be high, because shit happens, man. Like, yeah, he's probably not going to have a bottom of the first round pick. Like, when you project the top three, he's probably going to have at minimum a top 7 pick or something like that. But the 7th overall pick versus the 3rd overall pick in a draft class like that is probably a major difference. That could be the difference between Bijan Robinson or one of these elite DJ Uunglele or something like that, and Kayshon Boutte. And he might still be a great prospect at wide receiver, but if you think about it in this draft class, that's the difference between potentially a Jamar Chase and a Trey Lance.
Yeah, for sure. And mentioning here, because it's a one quarterback league, DJ Uunglele, for example, isn't going to have obviously the value because it's not a super flex. So realistically here, you're talking about those top end running backs. You're talking about the top end wide receivers. If that pick ends up 7, guess what? Brandon Ayuk, if you're figuring him into that mix, is absolutely going to be one of the top names in that list. So it's very risky. But again, you mentioned that you had a shit ton of depth anyways. I mean, look at that wide receiver core to begin with. So if you wanted to, punt the asset, wait to see what happens in 2023, I don't hate it for you, but I think you probably could have gotten maybe even 2 once for Ayuk.
Yeah, it's close. I think I would lean the Ayuk side of this trade, but I understand why you make the trade, because, again, like, when are you going to start the guy? But at the same time, I think Ayuk has the ceiling to be an every week starter in your fantasy lineup, to be one of those Metcalf, Tyreek Hill type of receivers for your team. So he's a guy that I personally wouldn't have traded in your situation, because you have the adequate starting, firepower to be able to wait and be patient on a guy like Brandon Ayuk. Yep,
absolutely. And before we drag this on too long, the final deal, he gave up Ruggs, Goddard, and Davis for 2023 first. Like,
great trade. You were never going to start Ruggs. You still have a lot of young, adequate wide receivers that are young players too. So there's no reason to hold on to some of the fodder that you gave up. As much as I love Ruggs, and as much as I think Dallas Goedert's going to be a solid contributor this year, you already have Kyle Pitts and you have Jonnu Smith to get you by in case Pitts gets out to a slow start. So yeah, you're definitely chilling in that situation.
Yep, absolutely. So overall, I think we can move on to the next team. What are your thoughts?
Yep.
All right. It's KyroPhantom. He's got a trade here. It's just simple. What are our initial thoughts? And my initial thoughts is whoever's getting Diggs is making out like a freaking bandit. Because how are you
and
only
it's Kyro who's getting Diggs?
Absolutely. I mean, the fact that you got, as much as I love Mooney, he's a nice, young, fun, talented wide receiver. Mooney plus a late first and a late second isn't even remotely.
Even if it's an early first and an early second, I would still take Diggs.
Like, honestly, like, if we're looking at it, okay, let's say the late first this year. I don't know. Even if that's like Bateman, are we really taking Mooney, Bateman, and fucking Nico Collins over Diggs? Like, no. I love those fucking prospects. No, I'm not. Stephon Diggs is one of the top 5 talents at the wide receiver position in the league, coming off a near 170 target season, tethered to, at minimum, a top 5 or 6 real life quarterback and fantasy quarterback in the NFL. Like, I would have needed a lot more. I would have probably needed at least another.
I would have probably, if you put a 2023 first on top of this, then I would seriously consider a trade like this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love this deal for you. We can get on to the next deal, and that's going to be from Buffalo Josh. So you can take it away with this one.
Yeah, so Buffalo Josh, 10-team Superflex, half PPR. It is a 6-point per passing touchdown league. So quarterbacks obviously have some good value. And I swear to God, 3 people in this video alone have had this quarterback stack with Josh Allen, Tom Brady, and Trey Lance. At least the Tom Brady and Trey Lance part of it seems like everybody in this video has that. At quarterback, you can see those running backs, great 3-stack right there with Gibson, Harris, and Javonte. You got a bit of a older wide receiver core, I guess, to some respect, but you still have CeeDee Lamb, Julio Jones, Terry McLaurin, Tyler Lockett, Robbie Anderson. So some good in their prime pieces right there, obviously with CeeDee Lamb being the young gun. And then Darren Waller at tight end, obviously a great position to be in. He says, do I have a contender? So again, this is a 10-team league, so everybody's team is going to be pretty good. But when we look just at the starting lineup, you're presumably starting Josh Allen and Tom Brady right away. You're going to have Antonio Gibson and Najee Harris in your starting lineup. Then you're going to have, CeeDee Lamb, Terry McLaurin, Julio Jones. It's 2 wide receivers. So you're going to have Terry McLaurin and CeeDee Lamb. Then you're going to have Darren Waller at tight end. You're going to have Julio Jones, Javonte Williams, Tyler Lockett, Robbie Anderson as flex options for you. You're in a great position. You can definitely win the championship with this team.
Yep, absolutely. So his initial question is, do you have a contender? I do agree. You mentioned that. The main things he's worried about here are Brady, Julio. Like, how do you attack that? How do you see that? And dude, with this roster, just go fucking win your championship.
Here's my thoughts on both guys, because these are the I think we could both agree that these are the premier win now assets in Dynasty, right? If you need a wide receiver and you're trying to win now, Julio Jones is the first name that comes to mind. If you need a quarterback and you're trying to win now, Tom Brady's is the first quarterback that comes to mind. These guys are 2-year window players, right? We can only project 2 years comfortably. That's the contract that Tom Brady signed. It's the contract that Julio Jones is under. Maybe you get extra years out of Julio, but 2 years of consistent, great, potentially elite play out of Julio Jones is what I'm willing to project. To me, that is worth a back end of the first round pick, and there is no way that you're going to get a first round pick for either of these assets. So in my opinion, ride them both till the wheels fall off. Unless you can get a first round pick after, mid-season, late season, next off season for these guys, there's absolutely no point in trading these guys, in my opinion, especially with a contending roster like you have.
Yep, I absolutely agree. And you mentioned this or he mentioned this at the end, that there's a team in his league that's stacked at wide receiver, but then at running back. So he's thinking of maybe making a move. In terms of that,
I personally wouldn't. A team that's stacked at wide receiver doesn't scare me as much as a team that's stacked at every position like yours.
That's fair. I'd want to. Okay, yeah. I mean, Sanders, Sermon. I was gonna say maybe if you can get like Diggs plus a running back attached for like Najee Harris, but then at the end of the day here, like
that, I don't think.
He's not going to give you Sanders and Diggs for Najee.
If you can rip the guy off, then go ahead and do it. But I probably wouldn't make any moves because your team is ready to go. It's ready to compete. You have 2 of the top 8 running backs in fantasy. You have a couple very exciting, very presumably top 15 running backs this year, and then you got a bunch of receivers and one of the best tight ends in the in fantasy. So you're good.
Yep, absolutely. So we can go on to the next team. You can read it off. Themobrule team, 10-team Superflex PPR.
So similar to the first team that we talked about, this is just a bunch of trades. He doesn't really, need much advice about his roster. This is a tear this shit down and rebuild this whole thing. He said he's in 30 Dynasty leagues. So
holy fuck.
He said he's trying to compete in a lot of them, but this is one of the leagues that he's doing a complete productive struggle in. And he wants, our audience to see how he got there. So you guys can see his roster at the top of the screen. This is what his team looks like right now. And you can see, obviously, the draft capital stands out. 6 2022 firsts and 7 2023 firsts. So he's got 13 picks in the first round over the next 2 years. Here's how he got there. And we're going to go rapid fire through these trades because there's like 10, 15 of these trades. So he traded away 2 seconds. And all these trades that I'm about to say happened during the 2021 season, or the 2020 season, sorry. 2021 second and a 2022 second for Deontay Johnson. What are your thoughts on that trade?
I like Deontay's side slightly, to be honest.
What in the context of he's tearing it down, does it give you any favor to the draft picks?
I would have wanted at least a young piece attached to it. The way I'm looking at it is you're taking two treasure chest type of shots for a guy that, well, I'm not the highest on Deontay. Hey, we're still talking about 140 target wide receiver. I think you probably could have gotten a little bit more value for it.
Okay. Yeah. I definitely agree that Deontay could have probably netted you more, but given the context of your team, acquiring draft capital, never a bad thing. So 2021 second for Will Fuller. Now, I personally would say that Will Fuller is worth more than that.
Yeah, I do think if you were to tell me that you got 2 seconds for Will Fuller, I think that would have been more appropriate value.
Yeah, I agree. And especially considering you sold him during the season too. And Will Fuller was tearing it up during the season, right? So, and there was still the potential that what if he re-signs with the Texans? And we didn't know that we didn't have this Deshaun Watson situation that we have now. So at that point, at that timeline, I would have probably tried to get more for Will Fuller, especially now. This is probably closer to appropriate value, but when you made the trade, I think you could have gotten more for Will Fuller. So 2021, so he got 2/3 for Nick Foles and Drew Brees. So hats off to you. Great deal right there. You get 2 third-round picks out of a guy that was going to retire, and a guy that's no longer a starting quarterback. So yeah, great trade there. You got a 2022 second and a 2022 third for Drew Lock. What are your thoughts on that deal?
Love it. I mean, fucking Drew Lock is what, at minimum a 1 year or a maximum a 1 year starter this year, maybe not even. I mean, yeah,
like his best case scenario is like Mitch Trubisky career trajectory. So like, yeah, definitely a great deal for you. Get the draft capital, get rid of the expiring, he's a young quarterback, but he's not going to be a starting quarterback very long. So get him off your team. This one, I guess technically you got younger. I don't know how you pulled this trade off, to be honest, but you got Evan Ingram and Christian Kirk for Zach Ertz. Got younger. Yeah. Maybe you don't use those pieces once your team is ready to compete. Maybe you trade them at some point, but they're younger pieces that should be easier to move than Zach Ertz. So definitely a great trade for you there.
Yep, absolutely. And yeah, I know I like where you went here. Talking about the next move though, this is probably a lot closer. I'm probably going to lean with you with the Barkley side because of what we know with Saquon and what we know with what you ended up doing with Barkley regardless. But I'm assuming you made this deal, in the season after he was hurt. You bought him low and you're saying, okay, let me be honest here. Going into a startup next year, is this going to be as low as I can get Saquon Barkley? Yes, this is going to be as low as I can get Saquon Barkley. Okay, I'm going to buy him now when I don't need to make a playoff push. I'm going to sell him to a contender going into next season, which, as you guys will see later in the video, he ends up doing. But what are your initial thoughts on DeMont and Swift for Barkley?
I think that's a great trade. When you look at startup value, like Barkley's top 5 pick, right? And the most staunch Swift believers in the world will probably only take him early second round, I would imagine, right? Like that's the highest he's going to go. Maybe he sneaks into the back of the first, but DeMont's a guy that's going to be a 4th, 5th round startup pick, right? So I think value-wise, it's probably pretty appropriate. And given he made this trade mid-season when Swift was kind of, up in the air, what his role would be the next year. And David Montgomery, we knew Tariq Cohen was coming back the following year. So I think this is a good trade considering what you did after. So to the next set of trades that he made, these were all this offseason. So post NFL season, he traded away the 110 and the 202 for T. Higgins. So this presumably would have been before the draft, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Because he said that like in the trade, he was like 2021 first, and then he's like eventually became the 110. So I'm assuming he made this before Jamar Chase was drafted by the Bengals.
Yeah. I mean, even like, I don't know. I guess like then it was probably fair value, but now obviously looking back on it, I mean, we're probably talking about what Bateman and Waddle maybe, or Bateman, Elijah Moore, or heck, any of those 2 wide receivers, you name it, for Higgins, which I would lean the rookie receivers there. But I mean, at the time, given the context, I don't mind the move, I guess.
Yeah. And the 110 straight up for Higgins is probably equivalent value,
probably about fair,
opinion. So that second rounder might be a little questionable, but if you made this prior to Chase getting drafted, then this definitely makes sense. So continue to rip through these. We got Evans, Lamar, and a 2022 first for DJ Chark, the 101 and a third. So just think about where the 101 is in startup drafts, right? Who's the 101 consensus? Trevor Lawrence, right? Where does Trevor Lawrence go behind Lamar? Startup drafts?
Behind Lamar.
Behind Lamar, exactly, right? And I would rather have Evans than DJ Chark. Even if I'm blowing it up and rebuilding, who's the more valuable piece that you can trade? Evans, not Chark, right? So, and then you also got a first versus a third. So great trade in that one. He said he got heat for this one.
What?
Yeah.
Do people view Chark? Did people view Chark over like what?
I have no idea how he got heat for this trade. No clue. Typical Lamar Jackson hate, probably.
Dude, you could have not gotten the first round pick, and I still would have liked your side.
Yeah.
Like, genuinely. Like, Chark in a third is probably about Evans, let's just say for simplicity's sake. And then I prefer Lamar to the 101. So, yeah,
exactly. Great.
You got a free first.
Trade there. You definitely, pretty much any trade that you like semi lost in the previous 5 that we talked about, you made up all that value back right in this trade. So, in this trade, this one is just phenomenal. He traded a bunch of mid-second round picks, basically early to mid-second round picks in this year's rookie draft, the 203, 204, 205. Let's just say for simplicity's sake, that's Elijah Moore, Terrace Marshall, and Rondell Moore. Let's just say that's who it was. 222 firsts out of that. Yeah, give me the first round picks next year.
Yep, absolutely agree there. You made so much value on that. So yeah, we can go on to the next deal. And man, like I mean, at the time, obviously James Robinson, Travis Etienne was not a Jacksonville Jaguar, but I guess like even if Lamb and Zeke are probably separated by probably a half a round of startup ADP right now. Like heck, I've seen Lamb go above Zeke in some startups, which I don't
always
agree
half
with.
Of every league has James Robinson's truthers in it. So you can sell the guy for a lot more if he comes out week 3 and he's like out carrying ETN by like 60 carries or something like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So overall, I do think that's a pretty fair deal. And considering the construction of your team, getting that young 21-year-old wide receiver in CeeDee Lamb, excellent move there. Next deal, giving up Gallup here.
I like this deal for the construction of his team. To me, the 2/3 is worth Gallup. Maybe you could argue Gallup is worth more, but
he's worth more than that.
Maybe, but
he's worth at least a second and a
first
third.
Is the premier asset that you were looking for in a trade like this, and that is worth it to me because of you're not really going to get to use Evans by the time your team is ready to compete. So I'm in favor of this deal. I think acquiring the first rounder was the important part, and you did that.
I personally, like, if you were to get 2 seconds here, like, I would have been all over it. And given the fact that you're tearing it down, okay, maybe like going from the seconds to thirds is not going to be the worst case scenario by the end of the day. But I personally would have tried to look out for a little bit more, or at least gotten like a decent depth piece on top of this. But regardless, 2023 first, who knows? Even if that ends up as a mid-round pick and you're getting one of those guys that we've mentioned earlier in the video, like you're still laughing at this point. So I do see your side of the deal making a ton of sense here. But it makes even more sense considering the next deal. Take it away, because this guy's literally going to own half of the 2023 first-round pick first-round draft after this. Yeah,
this is exactly what you want to do with some of these win now assets, right? Saquon and Lamar Jackson to me are 2 of the top 6 overall picks in the startup. That's how I value those 2 guys. So the fact that you were able to get 5 2023 first, and I'm not sure how the person that you had made this trade with had 5 first-round picks, but they clearly were maybe collecting them in the startup, and now they realized that they had a bunch of young pieces that took a step forward. Now they're looking to shove their chips in the middle and win it all. To me, 3 1s is the price for Saquon Barkley. That's the way I look at it. But the fact that this is the 2023 class and not the 2022 class makes it a little bit more, 2 1s and one of those seconds for Saquon is probably about equivalent value. And then that 3 1s for Lamar Jackson. Yeah, like that draft capital is a big time war chest for you to kickstart your rebuild and retool your roster from 2022 and 2023 draft classes.
Yep, absolutely. So any closing thoughts on his deals and team, or should we move on to the next?
No, we can move on to GusBuster. He pretty much just wanted our thoughts and basically to outline how to tear everything down and create a productive struggle. And I think Themobrule did a great job, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. So with GusBuster, you got a 12-team Superflex Dynasty League, and this is the first-year startup team. So quarterbacks, Wilson, Mayfield, Minshew, running backs, Mixon, James Robinson in particular. Wide receivers, absolutely loaded at the top there. Jefferson, DK, and Tyreek. Tight end, you got Noah Fant in particular. So, again, as I mentioned, 2 quarterbacks or super flex, 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, a tight end, and 2 flex spots. So he's got all of his picks in 2022, all of his picks in 2024, and he does not have his 2023 first, third, or fourth.
Okay, so GusBuster's looking at if he should compete, or if he should be looking to move guys like Russell Wilson or guys like Tyreek Hill to compete next year. So what are your thoughts on if he can compete with this team?
Dude, I'm sorry. Like with that running back core and that quarterback core, like you're not competing this year, in my opinion.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's going to be hard. You need a lot to break right. You'd probably need, if ETN went down and Mayfield turned into, Tannehill level of fantasy quarterback, you could compete with this team. But that's a lot of ifs, right? And those are the two most important positions in fantasy in a Superflex Dynasty League is quarterback and running back. And unfortunately, they are your weakest positions. So, yes, I would be looking to sell Tyreek Hill in particular and seeing if you can get
DK.
And DK potentially too. But I don't mind holding DK and holding Jefferson because they're young receivers. Yeah. But if you can sell Tyreek, if you can sell Beckham, if you can sell, any of these James Robinson or Joe Mixon, any of these pieces Russell that Wilson. Are older pieces, Russell Wilson, for younger pieces, that's probably what I'd be looking to do. Would you consider potentially fielding one of these guys to compete this year, though? Like if you could sell, let's say you could sell Tyreek Hill and get, I don't know, DeAndre Swift plus like a receiver or something for Tyreek Hill.
I mean, I would do that. I would do that rate to begin with. Like, I mean, let's say DeAndre Swift and I don't know. Would someone offer DeAndre Swift and Rashad Bateman?
Maybe.
Like if you could do something like that, but even if you do that, like that's a team that I would want to gear towards being dominant in 2022 rather than a fringe team.
But I think if you do a move like that, you can try and compete this year.
Flexible.
And if by mid-season you're not competing, let's say you suffer a couple injuries or whatever, then you look to sell pieces like Joe Mixon, then you look to sell pieces like Russell Wilson, then you look to sell pieces like Metcalf potentially. So that's what I would try and do. I would Hill is the guy that I would float because Hill has a lot of value, and people who are competing teams will be looking for a guy like Tyreek Hill to push them over the edge. So I would look for a trade partner with Tyreek Hill and see if you can acquire a young running back in return, potentially Gibson, potentially Akers, potentially Swift, Dobbins. Any of those guys will do, and maybe you can even get some more on top of those young running backs and see what happens this year. And then beyond that, I would look to tear it down if it doesn't work out this year. And you should know by then, or you can consult with us again a year from now how it works out.
Yep, absolutely. So we can move on now to the final team of the video. That's going to be the boy, PeakyBlinder. So this is a 10-team Superflex half PPR league with a tight end premium full PPR. Take it away with the team.
Yeah, so you guys can see his team there. He's got Stafford, Tua, Justin Fields, most notably at quarterback, Joe Mixon, Najee Harris, David Montgomery, Travis Etienne. So pretty solid at running back there. J. Jeff, Calvin Ridley, Jerry Jeudy, Juju, Henry Ruggs at wide receiver, tight end, Dallas Goedert, Cole Kmet, and some others. On his taxi squad, got a couple pieces, Kellen Mond in particular. And then looks like he has his first in 2022, but not his mid-round picks. He has his fourth. And then his 2023, he's got 2 seconds, and he has his first, but no third. And then all of his picks in 2024. So basically what he's looking for is what is the direction of his team? Can he compete? Or should he rebuild? He thinks he's well equipped basically for 2022, 2023 and beyond, given the nucleus of his team. But he does recognize he does have some, more win now type of assets like Matthew Stafford, like Joe Mixon. So overall, what do you think is the direction of this team? Would you go for gold in this one? Or are you potentially, playing it by ear kind of thing?
This is a very good team. But in a 10-team league, I would look to make a couple transitions just to see if I can make it dominant. Because I think you got the pieces here to truly make this into an absolutely dominant squad. The pieces that I'm looking at, again, he mentions Mixon or Montgomery for a future first. I think I would want a little bit more than just one first-round pick for either of those guys.
I think a future first is
that's probably, yeah.
Maybe you can get like a Pittman plus a future first for Montgomery or something like that. Just a piece in general.
Yeah, it's stuff like that. And he mentioned Stafford as well, potentially being in the transition, given your quarterback room, given the rest of your team. I would look at Stafford. I would look at maybe Ridley if you can capitalize on his value.
Juju is the other one. He's like, I know you guys hate Juju, so I'd imagine you're going to probably tell me to sell Juju. Yeah, absolutely sell Juju. He basically, the context of his message sounded like he was most concerned about his quarterback room. So if we could fix his quarterback room, how would we go about doing that? Would we use Joe Mixon to potentially go out and get a heater or what?
You could do that. Or I was even looking at you have Justin Fields. Maybe if you could package, let's say Stafford and Mixon and try to get I don't know,
Lance.
That's what I'm saying. What plus Lance would be probably equivalent value for Stafford and Mixon?
If somebody's trying to compete, they might give you Lance in a future first.
That's what I was about to say. Could you get that type of deal? And if you can get that type of deal, say you can get Lance in a 2022 first for Stafford and Mixon, go accept that yesterday because that deal is phenomenal.
Yeah, I think overall, this is a team that I would, send some feelers out, try and make some moves. But I think you could go into this team as it is, or into this season as it is with this team and try and win the championship and see where you're at midseason. If you're not competitive, then you trade Stafford, you trade Mixon, whatever. And if you are competitive, then you're probably okay to potentially make a move or even just sit pat and try and win the championship with this team as it is. Like Danny said, because it is a 10-team league, it's not necessarily a dominant team. It's a very strong team. You got good depth. You got good starters overall. But to make this a dominant team, you would need, especially your running backs. If Najee Harris could turn into like the next Saquon and ETN was the next Aaron Jones, then your team is really dominant, right? And you'd be able to make a move to potentially get another dominant quarterback. And if Justin Fields can turn into, the next Dak Prescott or something like that, then you'd be in a great position. But that's a lot to count on. So I'd be looking to make, a move, potentially one trade that can bolster your position. If you can move Matt Stafford for a young quarterback, if you can move Mixon plus Stafford for a young quarterback and some draft capital, you could definitely get away with either competing this year or just punting for 2022. Because I think if you do retool this team, it's a short retool.
Yep, I absolutely agree. So other than that, like those are the names I mentioned. I would also maybe look at Ridley. As much as I love Ridley, the player, I don't think people realize that we're talking about a guy who's 27 years old. In general, like I get it that the production is phenomenal, but given the youth of your team, Judy, Jefferson, Ruggs, Mooney, those rookie running backs, Tua, Justin Fields, maybe if you can just get a little bit younger at that position, maybe potentially move Ridley for, I don't know, Ayuk in a first. Someone might do something like that. If you can do something like that, I'm literally running to accept it yesterday.
Right. And you might be able to even swindle them to take Juju Smith-Schuster off your hands in a package deal where you could go Ridley and Juju for like Ayuk a first and, a second and another piece or something like that.
Yep, absolutely. So any closing thoughts on PeakyBlinder, or should we outro this?
No, I think we're good. And like we said in yesterday's video, if you guys haven't already done so, our draft guide are now, both of our draft guides are now officially live. You guys can go to thefantasystockexchange.com to check them out. If you guys want access to our draft guides, all you have to do, go to underdogfantasy.com using promo code FSE at sign up and first deposit of minimum of $10. You deposit $10, you'll get $25 free to play with on the site. And you'll also get both of our draft guides for free. So that is a very awesome offer that we have for you guys to get both of our draft guides for essentially $10 that you can win money with, and you get $35 on the site to play with. So just a phenomenal deal. And if you guys missed the announcement yesterday as well, I'm also running a special contest basically to win a free draft guide and to also be entered into our listener league to get a guaranteed spot. You guys can comment any of your potential league punishment ideas down below this video, down below any of our videos, or tweet at us with the hashtag #PickMyLeaguePunishment. Peace out, guys, and enjoy your Saturday.
Why you need the money?